You know that moment when you're sitting at a party, watching your wife flirt with her ex-boyfriend while everyone pretends it's perfectly normal? Yeah, that was my Saturday night at our friend's anniversary celebration. Let me paint you the picture. We're at this upscale restaurant downtown, celebrating 10 years of what everyone calls a perfect marriage. Meanwhile, my wife spent exactly 0 minutes talking to me, and about 3 hours glued to her ex's side like they were the ones celebrating an anniversary. The guy's name doesn't matter, but let's just say he's one of those smooth-talking types who thinks every conversation is a job interview for his charm. And my wife? She was eating it up, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, touching his arm during stories, and giving him the kind of attention she hadn't given me in months. I ordered another bourbon and watched the show, because that's what it was, a performance. She kept glancing over to see if I was watching, almost like she wanted me to react. The thing is, I've been married to this woman for 8 years. I know when she's testing boundaries, and tonight she wasn't just testing them, she was demolishing them. About 2 hours into this circus, our host decides to make a toast. He's going around the table, asking each couple to share what makes their marriage work. Real heartwarming stuff. When he gets to us, I'm actually curious to hear what she'll say. She doesn't even hesitate. With that smirk she gets when she thinks she's being clever, she says, "Marriage is just a legal formality. This doesn't feel real." The table goes quiet for about 2 seconds, then everyone starts laughing. Her ex laughs the loudest, of course. They think it's hilarious. Some joke about modern relationships and how refreshing it is to hear someone being honest about marriage. I didn't laugh. I just took another sip of my bourbon and watched her bask in the attention. She looked so proud of herself, like she'd just delivered the punchline of the century. The woman I married, publicly dismissing our marriage as meaningless paperwork while her ex-boyfriend nodded along like he was her personal cheerleader. That's when something clicked. Not anger, that would come later. This was clarity. Pure, cold clarity about exactly what kind of person I'd been sharing a bed with for the past 8 years. The rest of the night played out exactly as you'd expect. She continued her little reunion tour with her ex while I made polite conversation with the other guests. A few people asked if everything was okay. I told them everything was perfect. And technically, it was about to be. By the time we got home, she was practically glowing from all the attention. She rambled on about how great it was to catch up with old friends, and how some people just understand you on a deeper level. She was so wrapped up in her own little fantasy that she didn't notice I wasn't responding. I let her talk. I let her explain how her ex had grown so much and become such an interesting person. I even let her suggest we should all hang out sometime, because it would be fun to get to know him better as a couple. That last part almost made me laugh. Here's a woman who just spent an entire evening treating her marriage like a joke, now wanting to invite her ex-boyfriend into our social circle. The audacity was almost impressive, but I just nodded and said we'd see, because I already knew exactly what I was going to see, and it wasn't going to involve any group hangouts. The next morning, she was still riding high from her performance. Made coffee for herself, checked her phone about 15 times in 20 minutes, and kept bringing up random memories from back in the day. She was reliving her glory years, completely oblivious to the fact that she'd just handed me the perfect motivation to make some major life changes. I watched her scroll through social media, probably looking for pictures from the party or checking if her ex had posted anything. She was so distracted that she didn't notice me quietly gathering certain documents from our home office. Important documents. The kind you need when you're about to turn someone's legal formality comment into a reality check. Because here's the thing about treating marriage like it's just paperwork. Sometimes that paperwork is the only thing standing between you and complete freedom. And if she wanted to act like our marriage was meaningless, I was more than happy to help her discover just how meaningful those legal formalities could become. 3 days later, I made a phone call that would change everything. Not to her ex-boyfriend, obviously, to someone far more important. Someone who specialized in making legal formalities very, very real. That phone call I mentioned, it was to a divorce attorney. Turns out, when you've been planning for the worst while hoping for the best, you already know which lawyer has the highest success rate in town. The consultation was scheduled for Wednesday morning. I told my wife I had a dentist appointment. She barely looked up from her phone to acknowledge me leaving. She was too busy texting someone, and we both knew it wasn't her sister. The attorney's office was exactly what you'd expect. Mahogany furniture, law books everywhere, and the kind of atmosphere that says, we handle serious business here. The lawyer herself was this sharp woman in her 50s who got straight to the point. "What's your situation?" she asked, pen already ready. I laid it out. 8 years married, joint checking account, house under both names, no kids. Then I told her about Saturday night, the party, the comment, the whole show. She took notes while I talked, occasionally asking specific questions about assets and timelines. How long has this behavior been going on? She asked. That's when I realized Saturday wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the loudest example of a pattern I'd been ignoring for months. The late nights, out with friends. The phone calls she'd take in another room. The way she'd check her appearance before going to the grocery store, but couldn't be bothered to dress up for our anniversary dinner. About 6 months, I told her. Maybe longer. She nodded like she'd heard this story 1,000 times before. Well, the good news is you're in a no-fault state. The better news is that you came to me before making any major financial decisions or confrontations. Smart move. Smart move. That felt good to hear, considering I'd been feeling like an idiot for the past few days. We spent the next hour going over my options. Asset division, timeline for proceedings, what to expect during the process. She explained everything in terms that made sense, which was helpful because my brain was still processing the fact that I was actually sitting in a divorce lawyer's office. One more thing, she said as I was getting ready to leave. Don't change your behavior at home. Don't hint at what's coming. The element of surprise is your biggest advantage right now. So I went home and pretended everything was normal, which, apparently, was easier than I thought it would be. My wife was on the couch, laptop open, video chatting with someone. She quickly minimized the window when I walked in. How was the dentist? She asked, not even looking at me. Fine. No cavities. She nodded absently and reopened her laptop. I caught a glimpse of the screen before she angled it away. Social media, of course. Specifically, a profile page with a very familiar face on it. That evening, she announced she was going out for drinks with some old college friends. She spent an hour getting ready. Full makeup, the dress that used to be reserved for special occasions, the perfume I bought her for Christmas. All for college friends. Don't wait up, she said, kissing my cheek like we were roommates instead of married couples. I might be late. I almost laughed. Here she was, putting more effort into looking good for her mystery drinks than she had for any date night in the past year. The woman who called our marriage a legal formality was getting dolled up for what was obviously not a casual friend meetup. Have fun, I said and meant it, because every time she pulled something like this, she was making my lawyer's job easier. She came home at 2 a.m, trying to be quiet, but failing spectacularly. I heard her bump into the coffee table, followed by some creative cursing. She was definitely not sober. The next morning, she slept until noon. When she finally emerged from the bedroom, she looked like she'd been hit by a truck. Makeup smeared, hair everywhere, still wearing yesterday's dress. Rough night? I asked, handing her a cup of coffee. We just got carried away catching up, she said, avoiding eye contact. You know how it is with old friends. Old friends. Right. I nodded sympathetically while mentally adding another item to the list I was keeping for my lawyer. This became the pattern for the rest of the week. She'd disappear for hours at a time, always with some excuse about friends or errands or sudden work obligations. Meanwhile, I was quietly organizing 8 years' worth of financial records, photographing important documents, and building the most comprehensive case file my attorney had ever seen. Friday night, she didn't even bother with an excuse. Just announced she was going out and would see me later. She was getting bold, testing how much she could get away with. What she didn't realize was that I was letting her get away with everything, because every boundary she crossed was another nail in the coffin of our legal formality. While she was out living her best life, I was in our home office, making copies of bank statements and investment portfolios. Turns out, when you actually pay attention to your finances, you notice some interesting patterns. Like how our joint checking account had been funding a lot of expensive dinners I definitely didn't attend. By Sunday, I had everything I needed. Documentation, timeline, evidence of her increasingly disrespectful behavior, and a lawyer who specialized in making sure people like my wife learned exactly what legal formalities could accomplish. The irony wasn't lost on me. She thought marriage was just paperwork, but she was about to discover that paperwork had real power when it was filed in the right courthouse by the right attorney. Monday morning, my lawyer called with the news I'd been waiting for. Everything was ready. The papers were prepared, the filing was scheduled, and my soon-to-be ex-wife's education in legal formalities was about to begin. All I had to do was wait for the right moment to serve them, and something told me that moment was coming very soon. Monday morning, I filed for divorce. Tuesday, my wife brought her ex-boyfriend to our house. I came home from work around 6 to find his car in my driveway. Not parked on the street like a normal visitor, right there in my spot, like he belonged there. The audacity was almost artistic. I walked through the front door to find them on my couch, sharing takeout Chinese food and laughing like teenagers. They both looked up when I entered, and the guilty expressions on their faces told me everything I needed to know about how platonic this friendship really was. "Hey honey," my wife said, trying to sound casual. "Look who stopped by. We were just catching up and decided to grab some dinner." Her ex stood up, extending his hand like we were meeting at a business conference. "Good to see you again," he said with this fake smile that made me want to break his teeth. I shook his hand, probably longer than necessary, and watched him flinch slightly when I gripped a little tighter than expected. "Nice to see you too," I said. "Making yourself comfortable, I see." My wife shot me a warning look, like I was the one being inappropriate. Here's this guy, eating dinner at my table, probably using my silverware, and I'm supposed to play the gracious host. "We were just talking about old times," she explained, like that made bringing another man into our home perfectly reasonable. "You remember how much fun we all used to have in college?" Except I wasn't in college with them. I met her 2 years after she graduated. But apparently, we were all pretending I was part of their shared history now. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat in my recliner, the one she always complained about, but I refused to get rid of. "Don't let me interrupt," I said. "Please, continue catching up." They exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with my presence. Good. This was my house, paid for with my mortgage payments. And if they wanted to have their little reunion, they could do it with an audience. For the next hour, I watched them flirt while pretending to be just friends. The inside jokes, the casual touching, the way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't paying attention. It was like dinner theater, except the show was my marriage falling apart in real time. Around 8, he finally left. My wife walked him to the door, and I could hear them whispering in the hallway. When she came back, she had that defiant look she got when she knew she'd crossed a line but wasn't planning to apologize. "That was nice," she said, starting to clean up the takeout containers. "It's good to reconnect with old friends. Old friends who apparently needed private goodbye conversations and lingering hugs at the front door." But I just nodded and finished my beer. "Yeah," I said. "Real nice." Wednesday, she announced they were going to a concert together. Not as a group, just the two of them. She presented this like it was the most natural thing in the world. "He had an extra ticket," she explained while getting dressed. "It would be a shame to waste it." She was wearing the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. The one she said was too fancy for our dinner at the steakhouse. Apparently, it was just right for a concert with her ex-boyfriend. "Have fun," I said, because what else was I going to say? Besides, every time she pulled something like this, she was strengthening my case. Thursday morning, my lawyer called. "The papers are ready for service," she said. "We can have them delivered as early as tomorrow." "Do it," I said without hesitation. Friday afternoon, while my wife was out shopping, or whatever she was actually doing, I received a text from the process server. "Package delivered." She signed for it at 3:47 p.m. I was in a meeting when the text came through, but I had to excuse myself to step outside. My hands were actually shaking. After weeks of planning and preparation, it was finally happening. My phone rang at 4:15. Her name flashed on the screen, but I didn't answer. It rang again immediately, then again. By the fourth call, she was leaving voicemails. "What the hell is this? Call me back right now." The next message was longer and significantly more creative with the language. Apparently, she'd had time to actually read through the divorce papers and was beginning to understand what legal formalities really meant. I drove home slowly, taking the scenic route. There was no rush. She wasn't going anywhere, and I wanted to give her plenty of time to fully process what had just happened to her perfectly planned little life. I found her pacing in the living room, still in her shopping clothes, holding the divorce papers like they were evidence of a crime. Her face was red, whether from anger or embarrassment I couldn't tell. "Are you out of your mind?" she demanded the moment I walked through the door. "What is this supposed to be?" I hung up my jacket and loosened my tie, taking my time. "I think it's pretty self-explanatory," I said. "You said marriage was just a legal formality. I'm helping you escape from all that meaningless paperwork." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You can't be serious. This is insane." "Is it?" I asked, genuinely curious. "You've been treating our marriage like a joke for months. I'm just making it official." She threw the papers on the coffee table, where they scattered across the surface like oversized confetti. "This is ridiculous. We can work this out. We just need to talk." Now she wanted to talk. After months of late nights, mysterious phone calls, and parading her ex-boyfriend through our house, now she was ready for communication. "I'm done talking," I said, and realized I meant it. "You made your feelings about this marriage pretty clear at the anniversary party. Remember? Legal formality? Not real." The color drained from her face as she remembered her little performance. "That was just a joke," she said weakly. "I didn't mean anything by it." "Funny thing about jokes," I said, opening that beer I'd been thinking about all afternoon. "They're only funny when everyone's laughing." I wasn't laughing. She sat down heavily on the couch, staring at the papers like they might disappear if she looked at them long enough. "This is crazy," she whispered. "You're throwing away 8 years over one stupid comment." One comment. Like that was all it was. Like I hadn't watched her slowly check out of our marriage while checking in with her ex-boyfriend. Like I hadn't counted the lies, documented the late nights, and quietly endured months of being treated like an inconvenience in my own life. "Read the papers," I said, heading toward the stairs. "Your boyfriend might be able to help you understand the legal terminology. He seems to understand you on such a deeper level." I left her sitting there, surrounded by the legal formalities that were about to change both our lives forever. She didn't sleep that night. I could hear her pacing downstairs, making phone calls, probably texting everyone she knew. Around 3 in the morning, she tried to come into the bedroom to talk. I pretended to be asleep. The next morning, she was waiting in the kitchen with coffee and what looked like a prepared speech. Her eyes were red, hair pulled back, wearing the oversized sweater that used to be my favorite on her. The whole setup screamed, "Please forgive me. We need to discuss this like adults," she said before I could even sit down. "This divorce thing is completely unnecessary. We can fix this." I poured my own coffee and leaned against the counter. "Fix what exactly?" "Our marriage. Our relationship. Whatever problems you think we have." She was using her reasonable voice, the one she pulled out when she wanted something. "Every couple goes through rough patches." Rough patches. That's what she was calling months of disrespect and emotional infidelity. "Interesting perspective," I said. "What would you suggest we fix first?" She looked relieved, probably thinking I was ready to negotiate. "Well, we could start with better communication. Maybe couples therapy. And I'll cut back on going out so much." Cut back. Not stop completely, just cut back on parading around town with her ex-boyfriend. How generous. "What about him?" I asked. "Who? Your ex? The one who's been getting more attention from my wife than I have." Her face flushed. "He's just a friend. You're reading way too much into innocent conversations." Innocent conversations that required concert dates and private dinners and whispered goodbyes at my front door. But I didn't argue the point. "Okay," I said. "Let's say you're right. Let's say I'm overreacting to innocent friendships and meaningless comments about legal formalities. Here's my question. If our marriage means so much to you, why didn't you fight for it before I filed papers?" She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. The question had caught her off guard. "I mean, you've known for months that I was unhappy," I continued. "You've seen me pulling away, getting quieter, stopping the conversations I used to try to have with you. At what point during your innocent friendship did you think, maybe I should focus on my marriage instead?" "I didn't realize you were that upset," she said weakly. "Because you weren't paying attention. You were too busy reliving your college years with your ex-boyfriend to notice your husband disappearing." She sat down heavily at the kitchen table. "So what do you want me to do? Cut him out completely?" The fact that she had to ask told me everything I needed to know. "I don't want you to do anything," I said. "That's the point. I'm done wanting things from you." "That's not fair." "Fair?" She wanted to talk about fair. "You know what's not fair? Watching your wife treat you like you're invisible while she reconnects with the love of her life. You know what's really not fair? Having her dismiss your marriage as meaningless paperwork in front of a room full of people." I apologized for that. "No, you didn't. You said it was a joke. There's a difference." We stared at each other across the kitchen, 8 years of marriage reduced to this moment. I could see her trying to figure out what to say next, what angle to try, what approach might work. "What if I make changes?" she asked finally. "Real changes. What if I prove to you that our marriage matters?" "How?" "I'll stop seeing him. I'll delete his number. I'll focus on us." I took a long sip of coffee, considering her offer. "For how long?" "What do you mean? How long would you focus on us? Until you get bored again? Until the next interesting guy comes along? Until marriage feels like a legal formality again?" She didn't have an answer for that. "Here's the thing," I said, setting down my mug. You're not offering to change because you realized you love me. You're offering to change because you got caught. There's a difference. That's not true, isn't it? If I hadn't filed for divorce, would we be having this conversation? Would you have suddenly decided to prioritize our marriage? The silence stretched between us. We both knew the answer. My phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it hopefully, probably thinking it was my lawyer with some kind of delay or complication. Instead, it was my buddy from work asking if I wanted to grab drinks later. People are going to ask questions, she said suddenly. Our friends, our families. What am I supposed to tell them? Tell them the truth. That marriage was just a legal formality and it didn't feel real to you. She winced. I can't say that. Why not? It's what you said at the party. I was being sarcastic. People say things they don't mean all the time. Do they? Because you seemed pretty sincere when you were laughing with everyone about how meaningless our marriage was. She buried her face in her hands. I made a mistake. One stupid comment in 8 years of marriage, and you're throwing everything away. One comment. She kept coming back to that, like it was an isolated incident instead of the culmination of months of behavior. Like I hadn't watched her slowly detach from our life together while attaching herself to someone else. The comment wasn't the problem, I said. The comment was just the moment I realized I was married to someone who didn't respect me, our relationship, or the life we'd built together. I do respect you. No, you don't. You respect what I provide. The house, the financial security, the reliable husband who won't make a scene when you disappear for hours at a time. But you don't respect me as a person. She looked up sharply. That's not true. When's the last time you asked about my day and actually listened to the answer? When's the last time you made plans that included me instead of working around me? When's the last time you chose to spend time with me when you had other options? The questions hung in the air between us. She couldn't answer them because we both knew what the answers were. I want to fix this, she said quietly. I know you do. Now. But you didn't want to fix it when it mattered. You wanted to see how far you could push before I pushed back. So this is it. 8 years, and you're just done. I looked at this woman I'd married, this person I'd shared my life with, and realized I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even disappointment. Just nothing. Yeah, I said. I'm done. The finality of it seemed to hit her all at once. She started crying, real tears this time, not the strategic kind she'd tried earlier. Please, she whispered, don't do this. But it was already done. The papers were filed, the wheels were in motion, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. By Monday, she'd shifted strategies. The tears were gone, replaced by something harder. She'd spent the weekend making phone calls, and now she was ready for war. I talked to my sister, she announced over breakfast. She says you're having some kind of midlife crisis. I almost choked on my coffee. Midlife crisis? Men our age, they panic. They make impulsive decisions. File for divorce over minor relationship issues. She was reciting this like she'd memorized it. It's actually very common. Is that the story you're going with? It's not a story. It's psychology. You're feeling trapped, questioning your choices, acting out. She was warming up to her theme now. The good news is it's treatable. With therapy and patience. I had to admire the strategy. Paint me as unstable, herself as the patient, understanding wife trying to save her confused husband from his own poor judgment. It was actually pretty clever. What did you tell your sister about why I might be having this crisis? I asked. That you've been stressed at work. Distant. Not communicating. She ticked off each point like evidence in a court case. Classic signs. And what did you tell her about your ex-boyfriend? Her face went blank for just a second. What about him? Did you mention the concert? The dinner at our house? The 3 hours at the anniversary party? He's not relevant to this discussion. Interesting. So in your version of events, I'm having a psychological breakdown over nothing. I'm trying to help you understand what's happening to you. What was happening to me? Like I was having some kind of mental breakdown instead of finally standing up for myself. It was brilliant gaslighting, honestly. Let me understand this correctly. I said, you think I filed for divorce because I'm mentally unstable? I think you're going through something difficult and making decisions you'll regret. And you're the victim here. We're both victims of bad timing and poor communication. Bad timing. That was a new one. As if there was ever a good time to disrespect your spouse in public and bring your ex-boyfriend into your marriage. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. Her mother. What is this nonsense about divorce papers? she demanded without preamble. What did you do to my daughter? What did I do? Of course. I put the phone on speaker so my wife could hear this. Hello to you too, I said. I filed for divorce. Over what? She says you won't even discuss it rationally. Did she tell you why I filed? She said you've been acting strange for weeks. Moody, distant, unreasonable. I looked at my wife, who was listening intently but trying to appear casual. Did she mention bringing another man into our house? Silence on the phone. Then, what other man? Her ex-boyfriend. Multiple times, including dinner dates and concert outings. That's... Her mother's voice trailed off. She said he was just an old friend. Ask her how many old friends she takes to romantic dinners. It wasn't romantic, my wife snapped, abandoning her casual act. We were just catching up. Catching up requires multiple private meetings and concert dates. I asked. Interesting definition. Her mother's voice came back on the line, noticeably cooler now. I think I need to talk to my daughter privately. After I hung up, my wife glared at me. You had no right to involve my mother. I didn't involve her. You did when you called her for backup. She's trying to help. She's trying to help because you gave her a completely false version of what's been happening. I told her the truth. Part of it. The part that makes you look good. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Then another. Then several more in rapid succession. I scrolled through them, recognizing the pattern immediately. Looks like you've been busy, I said, showing her the screen. Messages from mutual friends, asking what was going on, expressing concern, offering to mediate. People care about us, she said defensively. They want to help save our marriage. What exactly did you tell them? That you filed for divorce suddenly, without warning, and won't explain why. Without warning? I laughed. I've been trying to talk to you for months. You've been too busy with your ex to notice. That's not how it happened. No? Then how did it happen? In your version? She straightened up, clearly having prepared for this question. You started pulling away, becoming distant and moody. I tried to give you space, reconnect with some old friends to give you time to work through whatever you were dealing with. Then you blindsided me with divorce papers. It was masterful. She'd reframed her emotional affair as giving me space, and my reaction as an unprovoked attack. In her version, she was the supportive wife and I was the unstable husband. And the anniversary party comment? A moment of frustration. Poor word choice when I was feeling disconnected from you. Poor word choice. She'd reduced her public humiliation of our marriage to a communication error. You're good at this, I said, and I meant it. Really good. You should consider a career in public relations. I'm trying to save our marriage. No, you're trying to save your reputation. There's a difference. Another text came through, this one from her ex-boyfriend. She tried to grab my phone, but I was faster. He wants to know if you're okay, I read aloud. Says he's here if you need to talk. How thoughtful. Give me my phone. It's my phone. But I'm curious. How many people are you coordinating with on this damage control campaign? I'm not coordinating anything. People are concerned. People are concerned because you're telling them I'm having a breakdown. Meanwhile, you're texting with the guy who helped cause this situation. He's not part of this. He's been part of this since the anniversary party. He's been part of this since you started prioritizing his attention over your marriage. She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. You're making this about him because you can't admit the real problem, which is you, your insecurity, your inability to trust. And there it was, the final strategy. Make it my fault. My insecurity, my trust issues, my problems. Paint herself as the innocent victim of a jealous, unstable husband. You know what? I said, standing up to leave for work. You're right. I do have trust issues. I have trouble trusting people who lie to me, disrespect me in public, and bring other men into my house. You've identified my weakness perfectly. Where are you going? To work, where people treat me with basic respect. We're not done talking about this. Yes, we are. My lawyer will handle all future communications. I left her standing in the kitchen, probably already composing her next round of phone calls and text messages. She'd spend the day building her narrative, gathering support, positioning herself as the victim of an unreasonable man. But narratives only work when people don't know the whole story. And something told me the whole story was about to come out, whether she wanted it to or not. The divorce was final on a Tuesday. 6 months after the anniversary party where my marriage became a punchline, it officially became history. My ex-wife tried everything. Therapy demands, family interventions, even showing up at my work. Nothing worked because I'd already made peace with the decision. She taught me exactly what she thought our marriage was worth, and I'd simply agreed with her assessment. The financial settlement hit her harder than expected. Turns out those legal formalities she mocked actually mattered quite a bit when it came to asset division. My lawyer had done excellent work documenting her behavior and financial irresponsibility. The expensive dinners, the concert tickets, the shopping sprees, all funded from our joint account while pursuing her ex-boyfriend. She kept the house, but got stuck with the mortgage payments. I took my retirement accounts, half the savings, and my self-respect. Fair trade. The best part came 3 weeks after the papers were signed. I ran into the couple who hosted that anniversary party at the grocery store. They were awkward at first, clearly having heard her version of events. "We heard about the divorce," the wife said carefully. "We're sorry things didn't work out." "Actually, things worked out perfectly," I replied. Turned out she was right about marriage being just a legal formality. Once we eliminated the formality, everything became much clearer. They exchanged glances, remembering that night. "She's been saying you had some kind of breakdown. Has she mentioned she's living with her ex-boyfriend now?" Silence. Then the husband shook his head. "No, she left out that detail." "Interesting. Well, I hope they're very happy together. They certainly worked hard enough for it." My ex-wife's narrative about my unstable behavior collapsed pretty quickly once people saw the reality. A man who walks away from disrespect isn't unstable. He's finally stable. I bought a smaller place closer to downtown. No mortgage, no shared accounts, no one treating me like an inconvenience in my own life. For the first time in years, I came home to exactly what I left behind. She tried calling a few times in the first month. I never answered. Her voicemails went from angry to desperate to bitter. The last one blamed me for ruining everything over nothing. Even after everything, she still thought her behavior was nothing. 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that her relationship with the ex-boyfriend didn't work out. Apparently, when you're someone's second choice, you tend to remain their second choice. Who could have predicted that? They also mentioned she'd been asking about me, whether I was dating anyone, if I seemed happy, if I ever talked about her. I wasn't and didn't, but it was nice to know she was finally paying attention. The truth is, I never wanted to punish her. I just wanted to be with someone who actually wanted to be with me. Someone who understood that marriage isn't a legal formality. It's a daily choice to prioritize your partner over everyone else. She made her choice clear that night at the anniversary party. I just finally made mine clear too. People ask if I regret the divorce. The answer is simple. I regret staying married as long as I did. I regret accepting disrespect as normal. I regret thinking I could change someone who didn't want to change. But I don't regret walking away from someone who treated our marriage like a joke, because the punchline turned out to be on her.